All right, it's Sunday, November 3rd, 2024, and we've got more severe weather to talk about for the future. And then also, unfortunately, we've got some stuff to report on from last night up here around Oklahoma City. We had a really dangerous outbreak of severe weather that struck Oklahoma and portions of North Texas last night during the early morning hours. Okay, so this all happened between like 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. We had these supercells form out in front of the main line, which is something that we often talk about. Right? If we get isolated, discrete cells that pop up out in front of the main line, we could have a tornado threat. Well, that's what happened last night, and we had some significant tornadoes. One of the more notable ones is going to be this one that went through eastern parts of Oklahoma City here. Look at that debris ball last night. This was a monster tornado. We're seeing some pictures and videos this morning that are just really heartbreaking from the Hera, Oklahoma area, and yeah, this was a damaging tornado, probably EF3 damage or greater, and unfortunately there's maybe more of that coming to some similar areas out here as we go into the future. Today, November 3rd, 2024, we've got ourselves a big slight risk of severe weather from Oklahoma City and Tulsa all the way back through Wichita Falls, Texas, and into more central portions of Texas as well. Today's threat is driven by wind and hail, but there is a tornado threat, 5% probabilities from, once again, all around the Red River area up to Tulsa, back down into more central portions of Texas. This is the same level risk as we had last night whenever we had that devastating tornado that went through portions of Oklahoma. But one of the big threats today is also going to be the hail. Okay, so big time hail is possible here, as noted by the hatched risk of significant severe hail possible Sunday, November 3rd. It doesn't stop there though. Unfortunately, tomorrow we've got ourselves another big enhanced risk of severe weather. The slight risk goes from just about St. Louis all the way back past Dallas towards Austin, but the biggest severe threat looks to be right in here in western portions of Arkansas and eastern portions of Oklahoma, and that is unfortunately driven by a tornado risk. It does look like we're going to have the very real possibility of seeing some strong damaging tornadoes here in eastern Oklahoma as we go through the day on Monday, November 4th, 2024, and these tornadoes could be just as strong as the one that we saw last night. The atmosphere is completely ripe for it. Here's what the radar could look like around 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern today. You can see that we're going to see new storms popping up all around Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas. The strongest ones are going to be back in here, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some severe thunderstorms, maybe even some isolated tornadoes as far east as into southwestern Missouri, western portions of Arkansas, eastern Texas. It's going to be way more isolated over there, but definitely watch out for it. Once again, our strongest storms are going to be coming on the southern side of whatever sort of convection that we get this afternoon. Around 7 p.m. Tonight, things are going to be winding down a little bit, especially the farther north you go. I think that Tulsa, up there towards Joplin, Missouri, you're going to get your storms around this time, but there's going to be so much morning convection. There's going to be so much rain just floating around in the atmosphere out there that there's not going to be a lot of destabilization that's allowed to happen. Most of that is going to be taking place back here closer to the Texas border, and that's where I expect to see the biggest severe weather threat as well. Storms are going to continue to move into the Arkansas area and southeastern Oklahoma area as we go into midnight, November 4th. And then this is where things get really interesting. So there's a decent clearing that happens here. Okay, so one of our biggest problems for today as far as limiting severe weather goes is all of the rain that's left over. It's not allowing for the sun to come out. It's not allowing for the surface to heat up. That doesn't look like it's going to be as much of a problem on Monday. Okay, so here we are Monday around 10 a.m. You can see we've got this big clear slot right here. There's going to be peaks of sunshine here. There's going to be some destabilizing air, and then you can see that the storms are starting to form over here to the west around 1 p.m. during the heating of the day. We're going to see big storms pop up, unfortunately, right around Oklahoma City, Tulsa, back towards Fort Worth, and then those storms are just going to get stronger and start to interact with a more favorable environment for tornadoes as we go into the afternoon hours, 5 p.m. or so, from west Missouri all the way down towards Dallas. We're going to have potentially some supercells popping out in front of the line, just like we saw last night, maybe even producing tornadoes. And if we don't see that, then we're at least going to see widespread damaging winds and large hail, and maybe even some embedded tornadoes in the lines, like the smaller QLCS tornadoes. Storms are going to continue to rage on as we go into 7 p.m. And once again, at this point, they're going to be very strong, but more linear, less likely to see supercells at this point. But anytime anytime you see any sort of little cell popping up out in front of the main line, this could even happen as late as 9 p.m. on Monday over here in Arkansas. Those could interact with that very favorable environment for tornadoes and start spinning. So that's something that we'll have to watch. Of course, this is going to likely prompt a live stream from us, so we'll be here watching this with you as the storms come together. And then the good news is as we go into election day, the storms really fall apart. We don't have much of a severe weather threat at all the farther east this thing goes. So, we're going to have a rumble of thunder or so in the boot heel of Missouri. We're going to have some, winds and some rain in Memphis early in the morning on election day. We're even going to have some storms and heavy rain in Houston on November 5th, but the severe weather threat's going to be very low, and the farther east that this goes, the less the severe weather threat becomes. So we're not worried about you guys at all over here. As time goes on, though, there's going to be a lot of rain that falls over the next 7 days. Most of this is actually going to come within the next 2 or 3 days. So we do expect to see some flooding here in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri. We've already seen some of it, but we're going to see a lot of rain, maybe all the way up there towards eastern Iowa and southern Wisconsin as well, 2 to 4 inches. Some places, though, could see 7 inches or more right around western portions of Arkansas and eastern portions of Oklahoma there. So if you live in a flood-prone area, watch those creeks and streams. And then, unfortunately, you've also got to watch out for the potential damaging severe weather on Monday as well. And then, unfortunately, that brings us to the hurricane outlook, the tropical weather outlook here, which continues to look more and more concerning. First of all, we do have tropical storm or post-tropical storm Patty out here. It's going to go to Spain and Portugal, which is not something that happens every day. If you've got interest in Portugal, Spain, or France, probably something to watch. There's going to be some strong winds and some heavy rain associated with that. It's going over the Azores now. It's going to weaken pretty quickly, but it's still going to be a strong storm once it makes it to Europe. Then we've got a smaller system trying to organize over here north of the Dominican Republic near the Bahamas. This has only got like a 10% chance of becoming anything anytime soon, but we're keeping an eye on it. But of course, all eyes are on this area right here where we now have a 90% chance of this becoming our next tropical depression down here in the Caribbean. And we officially have an invest for this. So that means that we're focusing more resources on this storm. We're starting to send planes out into it to get more data on it, and we actually have official model guidance from our spaghetti models here. This is the GEFS model guidance. This is a bunch of different models kind of showing where the most likely track for this storm is going to be. And unfortunately, man, it looks like this is going to go right over Jamaica, probably as a tropical depression or maybe even a tropical storm, bringing some flooding rains. Similar situation over here in Cuba, and then it's going to go into the Gulf. This is something that we've been talking about for well over a week. Unfortunately, it's reality now. It looks like this very well could go into the Gulf of Mexico, and once it's in there, we still don't know exactly what's going to happen next, but there's a pretty good consensus that it's going to stay on the eastern side of the Gulf and probably impact somewhere near Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, maybe Louisiana. Texas, it's looking less and less likely that this is going to be a problem for you. But yeah, now we've got to start to try to figure out what kind of intensity are we talking about here. Is this going to be a strong storm whenever it makes landfall? Right now, it's too far out to tell, but the fact that it's going to be over the Gulf of Mexico is just not a good sign because the Gulf is warm, and of course we've seen what's happened with storms so far this year once they get over that water. Here's the latest from the GFS. You can see that the storm really tries to come together here probably on Monday while we're talking about the severe weather that's going to be happening over here in Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas. Maybe even during that live stream, if we end up going live, we'll hear about our next tropical depression becoming official and then making landfall in Jamaica, maybe as a tropical storm, more than likely as a tropical depression. And then it's going to try to intensify rather quickly as it goes towards Cuba, maybe making landfall in Cuba as a tropical storm or a low-end hurricane. And then the GFS does take it right up into the Gulf of Mexico. But thankfully, due to that severe weather system that we're going to be tracking on Monday, there is going to be a lot of residual wind shear out here in the Gulf of Mexico. And according to the GFS, that's going to do some work on that storm, and it's not really going to allow it to become very strong. So that's something that we can hope for. Of course, it's just one model. We don't know for sure if that's going to happen, but that is definitely what I'm rooting for, because the other option is that it continues to intensify in the Gulf and then it makes landfall as a strong storm somewhere in Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, or Louisiana. But look what happens as I pull this out into the future, man. The tropics are going to continue to be interesting all the way out through the middle of November, which is something that just really sucks. I'm done with hurricanes hurricane season. Personally, I'm ready to talk about snow. The GFS way out here on the 384-hour mark does continue to show potential tropical activity down here in the Caribbean. So this is something that we're going to have to watch for quite some time. Now, this is just going to be the first of many updates that I bring you where we actually talk about the track and projected intensity of this next storm. Right now, it's too early to go into any more detail than what we just did. However, as soon as we have more details, I will be the first to let you know. In the meantime, I think it's important that we focus on what we do know, and that's that there's going to be a high impact severe weather system over the next couple of days in Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, and places like that. So we're going to hyper focus on that a little bit. If we go live today, there's a small chance that we do, but if we do, it'll be sometime in the afternoon. So make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on for that. Better chance tomorrow for a live stream. So make sure you're ready for that as well. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.